Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to see one of the very important aspect of research that most of us are not clear with, or we ignore this. That is theory. See, theory is the core of any research. Research starts with the theory and ends with the theory. Research is all about theory. Research is a process of theory development as well as theory testing. But a lot of us understand that doing research is just coming out with some variables, developing a questionnaire, running some statistics, and writing some findings. So that is what is research. But this entire workshop, we are focusing on the philosophy. So from the session 1, we are looking at the foundation of philosophy in various aspects of the research process. Last class also we were looking at the review of literature in a different perspective of the philosophy, the application of the ontology on the epistemology. Today we will understand what is a theory, how does a theory look like, what are the components of a theory, how do we develop a theory, how do we test a theory, and in different types of research like quantitative research, qualitative research, or mixed method research, where does the theory come in? So in certain research, we start with the theory. In certain research, we don't have any theory in the beginning. So what is that difference between the methodologies where the theory is used at different phase of your research? So that is what this particular slide also explains, the connection between the research and the theory. Research generates theory. So that's why if you see, research is a knowledge generation process. As per our first session, we understood that there is a connection between research and the knowledge, because research generates knowledge. And that knowledge is in the form of theory. And theory is required for research. Theory demands research. So even to expand the theory, you need to do research. And for doing research, you need theory. So it is like a cycle, vicious cycle. Research leads to theory, theory leads to research. So likewise, the relationship between the research and theory is very much connected. Therefore, we need to understand what is a theory and how does a theory look like. So actually, this is a standalone PowerPoint. Therefore, I used to start with the paradigm, but we have already seen what is paradigm. Just to connect with the further slides, I'll just run through So usually before theory, we used to talk about the paradigm. So you know what is a paradigm? Paradigm is nothing but a world view. World view in the sense how we look at the world. So paradigm is the base for us to look at the world in different ways. So paradigm is like a lens. So we see through the lens and we understand the world. And the same world, if we change the lens, the understanding will also change. So that is where different paradigms come in. So the example of paradigms, I have already told you about the heliocentric and the flat universe. So those paradigms led to a lot of theories, lot of knowledge, and there was a paradigm shift. And again, the theory emerges and the knowledge is getting corrected. So any knowledge is based on the paradigm. So the connection between the paradigm and the theories. See, the paradigms are made of theories. Like yesterday, we saw how the ontology describes about the knowledge availability and the accumulation of knowledge into a body of knowledge, the content, and setting a boundary for it, which makes the domain. So the body of knowledge or the entire knowledge base is made up of theories. So the paradigm, how does a paradigm look like? Paradigm is full of theories. Paradigm is made up of theories and paradigm is full of theories. And as I told you, paradigm is a lens with which we look at. Therefore, paradigm directs the development of new theories. So we add new content into the same domain, into the same paradigm. And the paradigm itself is going to direct the development of new theories. So through the eyes of the paradigm only, new theories are added to it. Are the theories that fall into that paradigm that gets included into the paradigm. So why do we do research? Research is a knowledge generation process, or it is a theory development. So knowledge is in the form of a theory. So when do we do research, or why do we do research? When there is a phenomenon that is not explained by the current theories, then we do research and we try to add to the current knowledge so that it will be able to explain the phenomenon. That is what we call it as a gap, knowledge gap, a research gap. The gap is the inadequacy of the current theory to explain the phenomenon or the problem. Whatever problem you have, we try to look into the current theories, whether there is an answer for the current problem or solution for the current problem. And if there is no solution available in the current theory base, then we go for developing a new theory. So whenever the current theories may not explain the problem in hand or the phenomenon, then we do research. Same way, when paradigms are not adequate, paradigms is the sum of all the theories. So when sum of all the theories is not adequate to explain the phenomenons, then again we start doing the research. So we look at how the theory and paradigm are connected. So as I told you, paradigm is made up of the theories. But the theories may be in small groups. Yeah.
One doubt. The
Yes, sir.
existing body of knowledge, is it termed as theory or some experts developing theories? Are we referring to that? For example, in each subject we have theories,
Yes, sir.
and also we have existing body of knowledge. So when new research is done, it gets to the existing body of knowledge. So are we referring to that as theory, or some theorists have come out with their own theories? For example, in economics, in related to investments, related to international business. So people have come out with those theories. Are we are referring to what, sir? The existing body of knowledge or the theories, specific theories?
Sir, theory is the individual piece of knowledge, and body of knowledge is the collection of all the theories.
Okay.
So that is why we call it as a body of knowledge.
Got
So the body of knowledge is full of theories, or it is a collection of theories. That theories may be given by different people. It's not given by one person. It will be given by different people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
again, some theories may be very popular, so it is named after somebody. So therefore, we say Maslow's theory or something like that, which are very popular theories.
Yes.
But lot of theories, they are not named, or we do not know who is the person who contributed to it. So there are a small level theory to a big level theory. So we are coming to that maybe at the end of the presentation. We have levels of theory so that we'll understand even what we try to say by connecting two variables, that is called as a theory. That is what I am trying to do from this today's session, to identify theory, because many of us, when I say theory, you may try to visualize or try to understand some big theories like Newton's theory or gravity theory or Maslow's theory or economic theories, whichever is very grand theories, which are very familiar, very popular. Only those things we think that they are theories. But there are other theories also, or other forms of theories also, which we are going to understand. So the collection of theories, again, within that there can be groups, like a domain, it can get grouped, and those groups again can group and makes a paradigm. So paradigm is a larger one within which there can be divisions, and the last piece of information is the theory. So theory is what we call it as the base of the knowledge. So again, further explaining the difference between the paradigm and the theory. Paradigm is a set of assumptions, concepts, values, and practice that constitutes a way of viewing reality for the community that shares them, especially in an intellectual discipline. So therefore, paradigm is collection of theories which are converted into certain values or principles through which we see the entire world. So paradigm is a combination of standards, theories, postulates, and research methods. But whereas theory is a set of statement. Theory is a statement. So theory will look like a sentence. Theory is a statement or principles devised to explain a group of facts. So that is where theory can explain one small fact, or theory can explain many related facts or phenomena, especially one that has been repeatedly tested or is widely accepted and can be used to make predictions about the natural phenomena. That is called as a theory. So we will break down this definition further in our slides. We are trying to break down this definition and understand what is a theory. But theory is a statement. Theory is about facts and phenomenon. And theory is one that is tested and proven to be true based on the repeated experiments or evidences that is being collected. And the use of a theory is, theory helps us to predict. So theory as a knowledge is available with us to understand the world. What do we mean by understand the world? We face the world and we are able to predict the world. What is going to happen? So I'll give you examples of how theories help us to predict. So coming to the evolution of this term theory, this will help us to understand what is a theory. It is like the epistemology of the term theory. I'm trying to trace the history of the word theory. So theoria is a Latin word, began in 1592, meaning conception or mental scheme. So any idea or a mental scheme is called as a theoria. So in Greek, theoria means contemplation, speculation, and looking at or things looked at. So it means like an observation of how do we look at something. So slowly it became theorin. Theorin means to consider or speculate or look at. Theoros means spectator. So all these things are connected with the knowledge, where it helps us to observe the world. We are observing the world. We are seeing the world. When we see the world, theory is what helping us to understand the world. This is a pot. This is a boat. This is a tree. That comes out of the knowledge that we have, or the theory that we have, saying that how does a tree look like? What is a tree? Those theories that are there helps us to see the world. So that's why Theros was a spectator. So then in 1613, it became Theohoron, means a view to see. So that is the principles or methods of science or art. So how do we see something? So in 1638, it became theorize. That is to explain what you are seeing, or explain the phenomenon, or explain what the observation or what is the reason. So that is what has become the theory. So theory is nothing but an explanation of what is happening, or what I am seeing, what I am observing. That has become theorize. So the exact definition of theory, if you look at from the Heritage Dictionary, theory is a set of statements or principles devised to explain a group of facts or phenomena. That's what we earlier saw now. So especially one that has been repeatedly tested and is widely accepted and can be used to make predictions about the natural phenomena. This theory is called in different names in different streams of our subject. So in mathematics, we may call it as a theorem. Theorem and a theory will have the same usage or same understanding. So what is a theory? Is a contemplative and rational type of abstract or generalizing thinking about a phenomena or a result of such thinking. So theory can be a kind of understanding. Theory can be a kind of reasoning. Theory can be something which gives us a kind of standard way of thinking or rational thinking. So theory is there for our generalization. So we generalize, if X is black, Y is black, so X and Y black. So like that, we are able to generalize.
So one doubt, sir.
Yes, yes.
So I'll start with a hypothesis, and then does that hypothesis, when it gets tested, does that become a theory, sir?
Yes, madam, I'm coming to that. I think everybody is more enthusiastic and running forward. So we'll have to slowly move. Understanding research is a slow process. So I'll be talking about the hypothesis. So how hypothesis becomes a theory and what is the level of hypothesis? Okay. Yeah. So theories may be scientific or it may be non-scientific also. That's why our social science also has a lot of theories. So scientific theories, what is the difference between a normal, our social science theory and scientific theory is, scientific theories are well tested and it is repeatable, verifiable, and it is universal and it is very much objective. So that is what the characteristics of science is. So scientific theories, most of the scientific theories becomes what we call as a law. Because the difference between a theory and a law, theory can be falsified, theory can be furthered, or it can be changed, or it can be incremented, but law remains the same. Because law has been based on theory that has been observed many times and universal evidence. A universal evidence is there and it is not easy to falsify. So you can keep observing within a particular situation or a condition. So that is what a theory becomes a law when it is extremely tested and it becomes more and more strong, it becomes a law. So the difference between a theory and a law is a descriptive generalization about how some aspects of the natural world behaves under stated circumstances. So if you further look at a scientific law or a law is based on unalterable facts. So it doesn't change. So here scientific theories are based on observations. Observations may change. The culture, the context, something may affect the observation. Therefore, the theories can get modified in different places. But here you cannot change it. Scientific theories are proven. We have evidence for it, but still it has to be tested. In different places or different contexts, we need to test it. The scientific laws are ultimately proven. So evidence is there. Here evidence and results are also there. Attempts to explain why something happens. Here states that something will happen under certain conditions. So the condition is important. That is the boundary of it. So you can represent it by mathematical statement because it is fixed. It has a standard equation like that. So a lot of laws we remember. So we sometimes call it as a Newton's theory and sometimes we call it as a Newton's law. Similarly, gravity theory we call it. Sometimes we call it as a gravitational law. So that is because those theories have changed into law because of so much of testing and proving it. So for people or researchers, the theory, how we can explain theory or how the theory is being used or how can we imagine what is a theory is. There are three metaphors we can look at. So metaphors, just to say theory looks like this, theory looks like this. So we can see that theory can be seen as a net. That is, it catches the world. So the entire world can be explained in basis of a theory. Theory as a lens, so with which we see, when we observe something, to understand it, we use theories. Theories as a map. Theories connect the phenomenon. A lot of aspects of this world, it is getting connected. So theory is something that can map, or theories that can connect. So theories have different ways of usage for us. Our theories can be looked at in different forms. So for a very specific definition, so that we can work on the theory and break the theory. What is theory is a set of interrelated constructs, or you can call it as concepts. So you know what is a concept. So theory is a kind of a statement. A concept is a word of a sentence. Like that you can think. So concepts are the smallest piece of the knowledge of this world. And when two concepts are connected, a theory is formed. So a theory is interrelated constructs. Theory is not just one variable. Theory is about two variables. So interrelated constructs, their definition, it means that you should be able to explain what is that variable, or what is that construct, or what is that concept. So first thing is its definition. Then the proposition. So what does this connection will bring out? That is what is the proposition that presents a systematic view of the phenomenon. See, again and again we are talking about phenomenon. Phenomenon is nothing but what is happening in this world, or what we observe in this world is what phenomenon. So for every phenomenon there is a theory. For every phenomenon there is a theory. That's why I told you in problem identification also, every problem is connected with the theory. We need to understand that. So phenomenon, by specifying relations among the variables. So theory relates to variables, and what is the purpose of a theory is theory explains and theory predicts the phenomenon. So that's what I have written it here in. Theories may explain or predict what goes on around us. So I'll give an example. See, theories explain. Theories explain means what is a cloud? So a theory that explains what is a cloud, how is a cloud formed. So cloud is a water vapor. So the surface water is heated, water evaporates, and it becomes a cloud. So theory is explaining what is it, what is a particular object or a particular phenomenon. Theory helps us to predict. I'll give the same example of clouds. What does a dark cloud means? What does a dark cloud means? Looking at a dark cloud, what can we predict? What can we predict? If we see a dark cloud, what does it mean? Or what can we predict?
Rain, sir.
Yeah. So we explain what it is, we understand what it is, and further we predict what will happen. So theory is what is helping us to understand the world and also be prepared for the next moment. See, we are able to live We are able to survive only because of the theories. If we are not using the theories every second, every moment of our life, we will not be surviving. Because we have accumulated theory as we grow by various means. So I have told you, how do we come to know? How do we know something? We know about various things in different ways. So we discussed about the 4 ways of knowing. We will know by believing. We will know from others. We will know intuitively. And we know by experimenting. So throughout our life, from the childhood, we have observed the world. We have associated things. And all those has become knowledge for us. And that we are applying every moment. We are applying every moment so that we are able to understand what is happening and predict before it happens. So the psychology students will understand learning theory. There is 2 learning theories. Conditional learning theory and operant learning theory. What is the operant learning theory? It is like acting before something happens. Acting before something happens, that is called as an operant learning. Classic conditioning theory is about observing, connecting, and then learning. It's an association. We try to associate things. So that is how theory is also. Theory is also, a theory is something that explains the phenomenon in the sense it says what it is, based on which we are able to understand it. And also theory is something that helps us to predict what will happen. So now you would have understood that the theory is everywhere. Theory is there in every form. A belief is also a theory. A belief is also a theory. Only thing, the level of truth in it and the level of dependence on it will be less. Tested theories, the theories that are validated, they are proven again and again. So that becomes a very strong theory, so that you can depend on it. And when you predict or when you act based on those theories, it will not harm you. If it is not a tested theory, then something can go wrong. So theories are being repeatedly tested to prove that it is the same in every situation. That is what research continuously happens. Research continuously happens to test and prove the theory again and again. So again, putting this definition of a theory, David Wheaton, so he suggests, from the definition of the theory, he breaks down the theory into components. Or he says there are 4 building blocks of a theory. So now coming to breaking down a theory. So theory is a statement. We said there are some statement in a theory which explains or which predicts a phenomenon. But further, the theorists, the people, researchers, you can note down this names, popular names, because that will be required for you to defend whenever you are writing your thesis or explaining. you will be able to use or quote these people. So David Wheaton, he speaks about what are the components of a theory. So what is there inside a theory? So he says constructs, like the same previous definition by Fred Kerlinger, constructs or concepts. So Wheaton also says constructs. Then he says propositions. So he also talks about propositions. Then he talks about logic and the boundary conditions. So this picture explains. So concept A, concept B, concept C, concept D. This concept can be anything. Okay, you can call it as a variable, you can call it as a construct, you can call it as a factor, you can call it in different names. So it's a concept, means one small piece of information, or we call it as the last unit of this world, a last piece of information. This concept is what of the theory. Then he is talking about propositions, that is the relationship. So the relationship explains how and why. That how is what decides the proposition and why decides the logic. And who, where, and when this is going to happen, that determines the boundary conditions. There are other aspects outside the boundary. We call it as extraneous. Extraneous means outside the boundary. So extraneous factors are also there. So if I change the boundary, extraneous objects can come into the theory, then the theory gets expanded. Or if I draw the boundary here, I can annotate it 1 minute. So if I draw the boundary here, this becomes extraneous. So any theory is understood based on the boundary. So you can expand the boundary, you can include extraneous variables or exclude extraneous variables. So the boundary becomes important for a theory. So putting it again, components of a theory. The first one is the concepts, variables, or the constructs. The second one is the relationship between the constructs or the factors. The third one is the boundary or the domain or the range where this theory applies. And the fourth one is the predictions or specific predictions. This is what a theory constitutes. What is there inside a theory? These four components will be there. So we are going to elaborate each of these concepts so that we understand the entire theory building process. So how do we build the theory? Yes, sir.
Sir, I have one clarification, sir.
Yes, sir.
When we say boundary, is it something we call it as like operational definition, or is it something different, sir? Boundary when we say in research.
So operational definition is describing or explaining this concept within this boundary is called as the operational definition, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
But boundary is like saying that this may not be true outside the boundary. This may not be true outside the boundary. For example, I'm doing a research. I'm trying to find out the factors influencing the satisfaction of IT employees. Factors influencing the satisfaction of IT employees. So the boundary now is the IT employees, because this theory may not hold good outside the boundary. For example, factors influencing the satisfaction of construction employees, it may not apply. So therefore, the boundary is the where the theory will be applicable, where the theory will hold good. That is called as the boundary.
So, for
The
example,
context.
inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, we define, no, sir, when we are telling the sample.
Yeah. Sample says who is going to be the respondents on whom this theory applies. So therefore, you can look at population as the boundary of the theory. Population as the boundary of the theory, or to whom that this research applies. That is your boundary.
Thank you,
So-
sir.
Sir, limitation of overall research could be boundary.
So there is two things you need to remember when you are using this term limitation. In research, we use delimitation and limitation. Okay. Delimitation is the scope or setting the range of within what you will work, or you can call it as a boundary. So you can call delimitation as a boundary. But limitation is something different, which is kind of a difficulty or a challenge. So you are limited, you are constrained, you are restricted. That is called as a limitation. So just to correct you, it's not limitation, it is delimitation.
Delimitation.
So
Right, sir.
delimitation is what defines what I am going to cover, or what is my range, or what is my scope, or what is my boundary. So
So
that
that come into theory part also, like in this concept part, like we cannot cover whole things. So we can limitize this concept into a specific area, and then we can
yes,
connect
that is
this.
one. So you need to always have a scope. You cannot have a bigger scope, because that becomes very difficult for you to prove or collect evidence. That's why always for our research, we ask to delimit yourself or set the scope, and your theory also is within that scope only. You cannot apply the theory beyond that scope. So if you want
Thanks, sir.
to further generalize, then you need to keep expanding the research. So different scopes are different range. For example, job satisfaction in IT industry, job satisfaction in construction industry, job satisfaction in automobile industry, like that. We keep doing across the industry, then we put it together. When we put it together, then it becomes a larger theory. That is where we saw this particular picture. So theories in small areas, then it becomes larger. Then from different phenomena put together becomes the paradigm. That's all. It's like a hierarchy. It is like a tree. It goes like that. So every piece of theory finally gets added. That's what we are doing. Each individual is doing a small piece of addition only. If you look at the grand theories, what we are trying to do is just a drop of it. That's what we will be doing. So that's how we need to understand where we stand in the entire knowledge, world knowledge, what we are trying to contribute. I'm coming to contribution also at the end. So 4 things. The variables are constructs of the concepts. The relations between the constructs are the factors. The range or domain where the theory applies. And finally, what it predicts. This constitutes a theory. A theory is made up of all these 4 aspects. So we are going to see one by one. Okay. So first we will see what we call it as the concepts or constructs by Fred Kerlinger, or what David Wheaton calls as a construct. See, this keywords like construct, the concept, the variable, it creates a confusion. It creates a confusion. Therefore, another researcher, Robert Dubin gives a term that's very simple. He calls it as unit. So instead of calling it in different names, construct, concepts, or variables, he calls it in a simple language as unit. So unit means is the last piece. For example, in a scale, you take a scale, a feet scale or a centimeter scale. What is the unit? The marking. What is the smallest marking? A millimeter. So millimeter becomes the unit. So 10 millimeters can become centimeter. 10 centimeter can become a meter. 1,000 meters can become a kilometer. Like that, the last unit is a millimeter on a normal scale. You can still go further down. But whatever you break, the last piece what stands is called as a unit. So in research, sometimes the single question that you ask, what is your age? What is your age? That is a unit. That is a unit. So unit is the building block of the theory. Unit is the building block of the theory. So what is a unit is the entire world scientific knowledge is made up of small concepts. Okay, each one. For example, even Newton's theory. You take Newton's theory. How many concepts are there in the Newton's theory? Can anybody tell what are the concepts that is there within the Newton's theory? Anyone? Because I'm taking an example of a simple theory because everybody knows it. Frequently we talk about it. Yeah, so somebody has answered. Let me check the chat. Force, work, inertia, pressure, friction, mass, weight. So these are all concepts within Newton's theory. Pull, meters, second, all these things are there inside the Newton's theory. So if I break Newton's theory, I will get at least 25 concepts within that. So that is why the complexity of the world's scientific knowledge is made up of concepts, small concepts. Concepts have a basic association in a particular instance, and one can assume and infer a new instance by these associations. That is what helps us to keep doing research. These concepts, they are related at one point of time. And in another instance, they are related to something else. For example, you take this acceleration. What is there in the acceleration? So acceleration will have two phenomena or two concepts connected. So meters per second. But that same meter can be connected to area. Meter square will become area. But that same meter divided by second will give speed or acceleration. mass. So mass can be used for weight. Mass can be also used for pressure. A mass can also be used for density. So likewise, these concepts are associated at one point of time, or on one instance it is associated with another concept, in another instance it is associated with another concept. So that is why this entire world is made up of the small piece of concept that is called as a unit, and every association we try to make becomes a concept or a theory. Every association we try to make becomes a theory. It will be a small theory.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
for developing this theory, how many concepts we can cover up? Because there are lots of concepts maybe associated with the study. Let's say example in education, or maybe lots of concepts is there. So how many concepts should we add into this to develop theory?
From 1 to infinity. That's what I'm saying. A theory is explaining one phenomenon. For example, you take mass. You take mass. What is a mass? If I try to explain, that is also a theory. Okay. I can talk about what you call it as maybe a polymer. What is a polymer? Polymer has so many components into it, and there is a lot of arrangement, bonding, and things like that. That has infinity connections. So theory is from a very small one-to-one or one-to-one connection to one-to-many connection. That is where we keep moving up the ladder of the theory, from the single to one-to-one, or 1 to 3, or 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to many. Like that, we can keep growing the entire theory. So that is what we need to understand. That's why we make mistakes. What is a theory? When we try to understand the connection between two variables, that is a theory. That is also a theory. That is where you may not have a name for that theory. You may not have a name for that theory.
Okay.
But
Right.
you can prove it, you can observe it, you can provide evidence for it, and you can call it as a theory. See, speed is a concept, but speed is a theory, because speed has further units into it. Speed has further units into it. Length divided by time. Okay, so this itself is a theory. What is a speed? Speed is nothing but length divided the distance divided by the second or time. That gives you the speed. That itself is a theory. That is a basic knowledge. That itself is a theory. But we do not know who found this theory. We do not know the origin of this theory. So we don't consider it as a theory, but basically it is a theory. Basically it is a theory. You can prove it. When somebody asks, prove what is speed, you can mathematically prove it, or you can physically prove it, what is the speed. So that is why the theories which are very common, where the founder or the researcher or who proposed that theory or who found that theory, we may not know. It has been for a very long time. But as the theory becomes complex and complex, and when there is a difference between two theories, then we start identifying them, and we start giving names to the theories. We start giving names to the theories, and we have, for example, the researcher's name for the theory. That is how the extent of connection starts growing. So we are talking about Dubin, Robert Dubin, I was mentioning. So Robert Dubin employs a neutral term called as units to designate the things out of which the theories are built. Okay, so now we will start calling the foundation or fundamental of a theory as a unit. A theory is built based on the units. Unit is nothing but a concept, the smallest piece of a concept. Smallest piece of a concept, that is called as the unit. So units can be object, units can be time, units can be event. So units can be a small instance of this world. So that can become the unit. So in research, we measure these units. In research, we need to measure these units. That is where the difficulty comes in. That is where the difference between the science and the social science also comes in. In science, measuring all these phenomena is very easy. Measuring the phenomena in science is very, very easy. There are physical instruments that is helpful in measuring all these phenomena. Pressure, length, weight, anything you can measure, temperature you can measure. How do I measure the social science phenomenon or social phenomenon? So measurement of social science phenomenon becomes the biggest challenge for any researcher. That is where we all make mistake or we do not understand it, and it becomes a challenge for us. See, to understand the kind of evolution of the social science research, or how people fought to include social science measures as a proper measure into the world of measure, you need to read. There is one seminal article. There is one seminal article. It is there in my blog, or if you go to my website, you can search for the seminal article on measurement. Seminal article on measurement, which was written in the 1940s. See, social science measures were recognized as measures after 7 years. 7 years of representation by people to the Congress of Measures or the Association of Measures. There is a group of people who declare or recognize these measures. If they are not recognizing, it is not a measure. So the scientific community was representing, and they were giving all evidences again and again to include social science measure into the measurement, standards of measurement. So almost in 1945 only, social science measures were accepted as measures. So attitude can be measured, personality can be measured. So that is only after 1945. Before that, only scientific measures using instrument, the physical measurements were considered as a measure. So this measurement in social science, we need to understand, since it is something new and difficult to understand, our entire research, whatever we are doing, this bias or this mistake gets carried over and our entire research goes wrong, because we don't understand what can be measured and what cannot be measured. What can be measured and what cannot be measured. For research, you need to measure. But what will you measure? What will you measure? So I'll give a small example of what can be measured. I'm bringing in an example of a fan. Okay, so you look at a fan. So there are many components of a fan. So there will be a blade, there will be motor, there will be controls, there will be screws, there will be body. All these things makes a fan. Okay. So many components makes the entire fan. And there may be different types of fans. There may be different types of fans. See, what can I measure? Can I measure a fan? Can I measure fan? I cannot measure fan. I can count fans. I can count how many fans are there. I can make a count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 fans are there. I can make a count, but I cannot measure a fan. But I can measure the dimensions of a fan. So the length of the fan, the breadth of the fan, the depth of a fan, like that, we can measure some physical characteristics of an object. Or you can count the number of units of a particular object, but you cannot measure it as it is. You cannot measure the color. You cannot measure the color, but you can measure the wavelength of the light. You can measure the wavelength of the light, but not the color. So this is where social science becomes very complex in measuring. A lot of people, we make mistake. So we need to understand the concept or the measurement is at a level that is from abstract level to the empirical level. Abstract level to the empirical level. A concept can be at an abstract level to the empirical level. So here is an example. Salesperson's job performance. It's a concept. It's a concept. Job performance or a salesperson's job performance is a concept. But can I measure the job performance? Can I measure the job performance? I cannot measure the job performance. If I want to measure the job performance, I need to break it down to the empirical level, the measurement level. So what can be measured? Number of sales calls, number of sales, or value of the sales. These things can be measured. There will be units coming out, numbers coming out. And this becomes the proxy of the measure of the job performance. So a lot of people, we make mistake. In social science, we make mistake. What can be measured and what cannot be measured? So what can be measured is the empirical level. What cannot be measured is the abstract level. So still coming into the units. So when we look at this abstraction level, from the empirical level to the abstract level, it moves like this. You can call it as an item, or you can call it as a variable. And many variables put together, it can become a dimension. Or you call it as a factor. Or you call it as a construct. or you call it as a component, or you call it as a concept at the most abstract level, you call it as a concept. So that is why in research papers, when you read, you will see all these terms indicating to the measure, but each of them are at the different abstract level. Item is the one that is directly measured. Number of items put together, multi-item. Multi-item becomes a construct. A construct, multiple constructs indicating another construct becomes a dimension. In statistics, we have something called as a factor analysis. A factor analysis finds a group of items into factors. So we call it as a factor. The same factor analysis is called as a principal component analysis. Those who are familiar with statistics and used SPSS, we will understand. We call it as a factor analysis, where number of items will become a factor. The same is called as a component in a PCA, principal component analysis, where set of items will become a component. The same thing, within a concept, there can be sub-concept, sub-factors or sub-concept. We call them as dimensions. So personality may have 5 dimensions. Service quality will have 5 dimensions. So a dimension is also a kind of a construct. Factor is also a kind of a construct. A component is also a construct. All these are measured with items. It can be a single item concept or multiple item concept. And all these can be invariably called as a variable, because the mathematical, what is a variable? Variable is a value that changes. So when we measure something in computer science, when you measure something, you store it in a place. For that, you create a variable. The variable is a place where you store the information, and that value can change. Therefore, it is called as a variable. So in research also, we call it as a variable. So item or a variable are something that is directly measured, and all other are constructed or created from those items. So that is why these are called as latent variables. It is also called as latent variables. Latent variables cannot be directly measured. They are measured through some other item. So this is what is a unit of any research. So unit can be at item level or unit can be at the concept. So unit is being measured. And how do you measure? What is measurable? What is not measurable? Please understand. An event cannot be measured. An event cannot be measured. For example, you say Diwali is a festival. Diwali cannot be measured. Diwali cannot be measured. University, you cannot measure the university. There should be some characteristics, some attribute of that particular thing that you will be measuring. You are not measuring the COVID-19. Some attribute of COVID-19 only you can measure. What is that attribute? You need to name it. So this is what the unit of a theory is, which gives a clear picture of how we measure it and then build the theory. Unless you are able to measure, you will not be able to do any research. You will not be able to explain it. You will not be able to test it. That is why measurement becomes very, very important. So we have another separate session on this itself, measure itself. Maybe I will be repeating the same thing, but still going further into developing those measures and how do we measure it. So these are units. That is one component of a theory. You call it as a unit. Unit is nothing but a concept or something that is measured, which is a variable or at a different abstract level, at an higher abstract level, which is a kind of a construct or a dimension. That is what is a unit is. Now coming to the second component of a theory. What is there in the theory? First is the unit. Second one is how these units interact. So we call it as a law of interaction. A theory speaks about the connection between two variables. That is why we are able to predict something. I gave you an example of the dark clouds. Dark clouds and the rain, there is an interaction. There is an interaction or there is an association, and that makes the theory. So unit alone doesn't make the theory. Unit alone doesn't make the theory. Maybe explanation of the unit can make a theory. Explanation of the unit can make a theory, or the association of a unit with another unit will make a theory. That association is the relationship, and there can be three types of relationship between the units. There can be three types of relationship that can exist between two concepts or two units. So this is again, I'm bringing it from Dubin. Please make note of it because many times if you want to defend what you're doing in your research, you need to mention these names. Only then you'll be able to defend. So Dubin 1978 helps in defending your theory development part. So I will explain you what are these three interactions or three relationships or three associations which we try to do. So the first one is called as a categorical interaction. What is categorical interaction? When one variable is present, the other variable is also present. When one concept is present, the other concept is also present. So you need to understand that this is not an impact. This is not a kind of creating. This is only two independent things that exist, or we can call it as coexist. That is coexisting. When this object is there, this object is also there. So you can see when job employment is there, job satisfaction is also there. When fragrance is there, happiness is also there. So this kind of interaction is called as categorical interaction. That is, it only gives the presence. When one is present, the other one is also present.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
can I, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, for example, employee engagement and job satisfaction. Assume, for example, we want to measure job satisfaction. Can we measure employee engagement and conclude it for the job satisfaction?
So that comes in the third relationship.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So now I am slowly moving. The first relationship is when this is present, that is also present.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay. So now coming to the second type of relationship or second type of association, where there is a time line. That is, this will be present before this. There is a connection, but performance will appear only after the training. So the connection where we are saying that one is present before the other one. So that is a kind of interaction. We call it as a sequential interaction. So attitude comes before intention. Performance comes after training. So there is a timeline of interaction. There is a timeline of interaction. So please understand, this one is, this coexists. When this present, this is also present. When this is present, this is also present. But here, there is a timeline. There is a timeline. So this is present before this. Or this comes after this. This comes after this. This is called as a sequential interaction. But the same thing, it can be a determinate interaction. Determinate interaction is what Sir was asking. It determines, that is, value of this will determine the value of the other one. That is what you can see. A categorical law of interaction is a symmetrical, that value of one unit is associated with the value of other unit. Either one of the unit may appear first in the statement of the law. So there is no sequence. Either this can come or that can come first. So it is only kind of a symmetrical. So this is also there, this is also there. You can change it like this. In an equation, when you write, this is, you can interchange it. But in a sequential law of interaction implies a sequential relationship between the units. There is a time. There is a kind of a relationship based on the time. But the third relationship is about the determined interaction explains the determinate values of one unit with the determinate values of the other unit. That is where, if I want to show a determinate relation of this, I will have some numbers. So one unit of employee engagement will give 2 units of job satisfaction. That becomes a determinate interaction or determinate relationship. So I have given an example here. It becomes a formula. So here we are giving an example of the demand. So economics, many people, basic economics, you know what is demand. Demand is a factor of so many things. So for example, it may be price of the goods or service. It can be an income of a buyer. It can be price of a related goods or service. It can be taste of the consumer. It can be expectations. So how do I determine demand? I can determine demand from these values. I can determine demand from these values, either from one factor or all the factor. So then I will have a kind of a formula. We call it as a, maybe people are familiar with regression equation. So y is equal to a plus bx plus c. So where if multiple variables are there, then we will say a plus b1 x1 or b2 x2, like that we go, we write the equation. So one value determines the other value. One value determines the other value. This is the third kind of interaction. So these are the 3 relationships that can emerge between the units or the variables. See, because of this relationships, so now the name of the variables changes. As I told you, we said variable. We saw what are these variables here: item, variable, dimension, factor. Now, because of the relationship, the variable is identified in a different way. We call it as temporal, that is time. So how it time, or observation, when do we observe, or the measurement characteristics. Based on the measurement characteristics, we can identify the variables into different variables, like independent variable, dependent variable. I think everybody is aware of it. So independent variable will appear in any relationship before first. Dependent variable will appear in any relationship as a second one. And dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable. So independent variable becomes the determinant of the dependent variable. Then we have a mediating variable. If something is in between, or moderating variable, or as a control variable, or as a confounding variable. So variable takes different names depending on its position in the relationship. Based on the position in the relationship. So when we have a relationship, it takes a relationship. So a categorical interaction, if you remember statistics, for a categorical interaction, what kind of statistics I'll have to do is chi-square test. Lot of people will do regression. Lot of people will do ANOVAs or t-test to find out the categorical interaction. That is totally wrong. Chi-square test is called as an independence test or a dependence test. So whether two variables are associated, we used to do a chi-square test. Chi-square test is nothing but to find out the categorical interaction. You can put the variable either way. You can have X on the row, Y on the column. Or you can have Y on the row, X on the column. So there is no direction. It doesn't give any kind of a direction. Correlation is also a kind of a categorical interaction. You can have a correlation X on this side and Y on this side, or Y on this side and X on this side. Both will give the same result. That is called as a categorical interaction. So that is how we do. So in a chi-square test, if there are X and Y, you cannot call them as independent variable and dependent variable, because both are equivalent variables. So you don't call it as independent or a dependent variable. In correlation also, you cannot call variable as independent variable or a dependent variable, because both are same level of variable. But in regression, you can call it as an independent variable or a dependent variable, depending on which side it is placed. If it is before the equation, it is a dependent variable. If it is after the equation, it is an independent variable. That is how we can identify the variables and also the relationship, and how the statistics helps in testing these relationships. So there is a lot of connections of research process getting into this. You will understand. See, if you understand the fundamental, you will understand what statistics to use, how to infer, what findings to give. Everything becomes clear. That's why.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, what about control variables, sir? Is it mandatory to use, in order to measure the influence or the impact under all circumstances?
Sir, here I have just presented it saying that there are variable names, control variables. Depending on how you use the control variable, a variable, it can be a control variable also. How do we test the control variable, or how do we analyze the control variable? We'll have to see it in the statistical tools.
Yes.
So there are multiple ways of using a control variable into a test. It may be used in kind of ANOVA, where control variable will become the group. Control variable is the group, and you test the other variable. That is kind of a test you can do. Same way, you can use control variable as a moderating variable or product variable. You can multiply it and interact it, and then find out what is an interaction about effect. So the control variable become a moderating variable. So all that is a next level. When we think of the analysis, you will understand how to analyze a control variable, mediating variable, or a moderating variable. So but here, just understand that variables are called in different names depending on the use of that variable in the theory. Inside the theory, how this variable is being used will determine what is that variable. So I am talking in context of the theory. In a theory, this variable will be an independent variable, but the same variable can be a dependent variable in another theory. Are you able to understand, sir?
Yes,
So
sir. Yes.
this dependent variable will be an independent variable in another theory. So therefore, position of a variable in a theory, you can identify these variable names. So that is what is based on the interaction. Then coming to the boundary, as I have explained already, what is a boundary? So boundary defines the domain over which the model applies or theory applies. So don't read this. This is from another slide. So boundary is the area within which the theory applies. Now coming to the propositions, before propositions, we need to understand how does a theory helps us in predicting something. Any theory will have an output. So you know, a theory is like a system. Theory is like a system. You know what is a system? There is a definition for system, or how do we represent a system? System is something where there are interrelated entities coming together for a common purpose. So each one is different. For example, it's an independent variable, it's a different dependent variable, but they all come together to tell us something. That is what a theory is called as a system. So therefore, a theory can have something called as an input, process, and an output. That is how we represent a system. So there can be an input, there can be a process, there can be an output. So theory says, if these are the inputs, theory will say, if these are the inputs, and if this is the process, this will be the output. That becomes a theory. That becomes a theory. But the output can be different. That is, it can be a discrete output. We call it as a discrete system. So the output can be a discrete output, or the output can be a continuous output. Continuous output or a discrete output. So I will explain you what is a discrete output and a continuous output. So theories can predict in a discrete way or in a continuous way. So this is a good example of what is a discrete and a continuous one. So discrete means either it is present or it is not present. Either it is present or not present. But continuous is, it is present but at a different level. It is present at a different level. So a system or a theory, the output of the theory can be saying that it is there or it is not there. I'll give an example of what kind of theory it is. You take adoption theories. There are a lot of adoption theories. What is the output of an adoption theory? What is an output of an adoption theory? Whether a person will adopt or not adopt. Even in consumer behavior, there are theories, buying theories, buying intention or buying theories, buying behavior theories. Buying behavior theory, the outcome of the theory is whether a person will buy or not buy. So I can make a research, I can make an equation, I can come out with a theory. The theory will predict if these factors are present, he will buy. If these factors are not present, he will not buy. So the output of this theory is only two states, yes or no, buy or not buy. So any theory that ends with a discrete result is called as a discrete system or a discrete theory. At the same time, the output can be a continuum, low to high. It can be anywhere on this continuum. If I change these factors, it may either be in between the low and high. That is called as a continuous system. So you can predict certain values coming out. In a theory, when you are predicting using a theory, you will come out with a value. For example, if attitude is the output. There are factors that influence the attitude. That attitude can be very high attitude or a low attitude or in between. So you can predict what will be the level of attitude. Performance is also a kind of a continuum. If I'm going to measure performance as the output, you cannot have 0 performance and 100% performance. It can be in between also, 70% performance, 60% performance, it can be in between. So performance will be an output which is continuum or continuous. So what does a theory predict? Theory can predict either 2 states, discrete states, then it's a discrete system, or it can be a continuous state. So we call it as a continuous system. So finally, coming to the propositions, the relationship, putting together everything that is logically developed from the units, the law of interaction, the boundaries, and the system state, we call it as propositions. See, proposition is a kind of a statement. Proposition, sometimes we call it as an hypothesis also. In research, we use this term, 2 terms, hypothesis and proposition interchangeably. Sometimes we will call it as a proposition, sometimes we call it as an hypothesis, but that is wrong. Okay, there is a kind of understanding. See, proposition is the theory or the relationship at the abstract level. Theory or a relationship at the abstract level. But an hypothesis is something gives the relationship at the measurable level or the empirical level. So in your thesis or a paper, when you are writing it as hypothesis, what statement or what variable you are putting it in the hypothesis, it has to be measured. It has to be measured directly. So please understand, hypothesis is at the empirical level. Proposition is at the abstract level. So I have shown you what is an abstract level and what is an empirical level in a previous slide. So here, the relationship, I am trying to say it as a difference. So from now onwards, don't use interchangeably. If you are saying hypothesis, then I will be looking for how you are measuring this. If it is a proposition, it is a concept. It is a concept level. Hypothesis is at a variable or a measurement level. Is it clear? So hypothesis is a kind of intermediate theory. Hypothesis is a kind of intermediate theory. It's an assumption which has to be validated or evidence has to be produced to call it as a theory. So theory and hypothesis are the same. So in the beginning, there was a question, no? So theory and hypothesis are the same, but theory is at the validated with the evidence and can be based on propositions also, because in a theory, it can be any of these. So it can be between variable to variable, you can frame a theory, or a concept to concept, you can frame a theory, But when it is variable to variable, it is an hypothesis. When it is concept to concept, it is a proposition. So only distinction between an hypothesis and a theory is that an hypothesis is yet to be validated. It is only a guess. Once it is tested, the hypothesis will become a theory. So now you will understand. Now you will understand whatever hypothesis you are framing in your research is the theory that is coming out after you evaluate. So when you're reading a research article also, where to find the theory? Whatever hypothesis has been proved, that becomes the theory. So don't search for the name. Don't search for named theories, Maslow's theory. So theory development or theory building. There are many ways of building theory. There are many ways of building theory. It's not only one way that we build theory. No. We can build theory in different ways. So that is what I'm trying to show you here. So theory is that explains the world. Theory is something that explains the world. So how is this theory developed from the world or from the reality? You pick up the objects and you measure it. You measure it and you try to connect it. And that connection becomes a knowledge, and that knowledge becomes the theory. So that is why your research process is like frame an hypothesis, break it down into measurable variables, measure it, test it, then prove it, then it becomes a theory, and that theory explains the world. So that's why back to the world. So between world or the reality and the theory, it's all the evidences and the connections. The data and the model are the data and the relationships that makes the theory. So that can be done in different ways. So here is a list of different methods of theory building. Each one of them tells that the theory can be developed in different way. So I was speaking about Dubin 1978. He gives a 8-step theory building process. Then comes Week 1989, who says theorizing can be a disciplined imagination. Lineham 2002, he says general method of theory building research. So he combines so many methods and comes out with a general method for theory building. And Wheaton 2002 says modeling as a theorizing. So even you can model it. You can model it, that becomes a theorizing. So next session is going to be developing a model through which we make a intermediate theory and then we'll make a proven theory. Then there is another author, Van de Ven, who speaks about a diamond model of a theory building process. And there is one more thing, Cermak 2006 talks about scenario planning as theorizing. The operations research or operations management scholars will know scenario planning. So even in Excel, there is a tool called as a scenario planning. So that scenario planning is also a kind of a theorizing. So different methods of theory building. So I will show you some of these methods and explain what are those popular methods of theory building. Before that, some of the books that you can read for understanding the theory building. So this is what Robert Dubin's book. It's a very rare book. It's 1969 book, I hope. This book, many libraries do not have. Maybe old copies may be available in Amazon. So getting hold of this book is very difficult, but it's a wonderful book. Very simple book which talks about what is a theory, what is a component of a theory, and how to build a theory. And he speaks about the 8 steps which I am going to tell you in the next slide. This book is Theory Construction and Model Building Skills. So it talks about a skill, a practical guide for social scientists, how you can do both model building as well as theory building. There is an interconnection between model and theory. We will be talking about that in next class. So this book talks about those two. And this is what I was telling you, theory building in applied disciplines. This Cermak, where is he? Here he is. And one more author is there, Swanson. Very popular authors who speak about theory building in applied disciplines. Then this is our Indian book. One IIM professor, Badri Narayan Shankar Pawar, he has wrote about theory building for hypothesis specification in organizational studies. This is also a very good book for reading. So these are some books you need to read to understand the theory building. So now coming to the 8-step process of Robert Dubin's theory building. This 8-step can be divided into 2 stages. One is theory construction, other one is theory testing. That is, you first make some kind of a conceptual framework and then you collect data and test it. So it includes 8 stages where first is defining the concepts, units and constructs, defining the law of interaction, defining the boundaries, define the system state, and define the proposition. If you look at, these are all defined the design stage like. Then you define empirical indicators of the key terms, how you are going to measure. Then obtain the testable hypothesis. And finally test it by collecting the data. So once the data is proving the hypothesis, then that becomes a theory. So that is what Dubin explains, and most of the today's presentation was based on this particular stages of theory building. Next comes Carl Weick. Carl Weick is a professor in psychology. What he talks about is a disciplined imagination as a method of theory building. So that is where the theory gets improved and theory goes forward and theory gets expanded. That can happen only with the disciplined imagination. So a disciplined imagination is the most powerful creative force used deliberately and persistently to a greater extent. So disciplined imagination is one thing that extends our theories. So there is one more person who describes the chart 89. What is a theory? So as I told you, variable to variable hypothesis. Construct to construct is the proposition. So you are drawing a connection and you are connecting it and you are having a boundary. You are having a boundary. The boundary can be time and space. Boundary can be time and space. And the variable to construct is called as the generalizability. So how you generalize to a broader concept. So this entirely can be understood as a theory. So this is the theory building, another framework of theory building, where you observe, describe, and measure the phenomenon. Then you categorize them, and that becomes the theory. So theory is a statement of what causes what and why. Theory is a statement of what causes what and why. So whenever there is an anomaly, you go for an iterative process to modify the theory. And you collect data to confirm the theory, and detectively you come down to predict certain phenomena. So this is an inductive process. This is a deductive process. So in logic, you'll understand induction and deductive logic. So I'm not touching upon that because that is a different concept. So explanatory theory building process, when there is no variables known, that's what we call it as a qualitative research, no, or a mixed method research. So there we may have three different phases. Emergent phase, where the concept is emerging. Construction phase, where the hypothesis emerges. And the confirmatory phase, where we validate and confirm the theory. So almost it's a kind of a mixed method theory building. So from observation, pattern, from thinking, and from conceptual framework, modeling, then hypothesis, then doing the confirmation. So this is a three-stage elaborate from scratch to the theory. So earlier ones are from theory to theory. This one is a scratch to the theory. So where can I find the theories? So a lot of websites have compiled the theories. So for management scholar, usually I present to management scholars. So here is a management list where you can find a lot of theories. 12manage.com. Or this Wikibooks, Handbook of Management Scales, also talks about a lot of theories. For information system theories, there is a website, istheorizeit.org. Please visit this website. You will understand the theory, the component of a theory, how the variables are interchanged, and who has tested it. A lot of information you will find of each theory. Okay, these are some wonderful websites which you can visit to understand about the theory. So these PowerPoints and these references are there in the Google Classroom. This PPT is there. Go to this PPT, you can pick up these things and you can browse and learn further. There is one more website called as theorymaps.org. If you go to this website, so there is a mapping of these theories. Mapping of these theories or interconnection of these theories. So in review of literature, yesterday we spoke about mapping. Mapping of variables. You can also do mapping of theories. So like this, with the central idea of dialogue or digital dialogue communication, how different theories are connected. How different theories are connected. So for each phenomenon, each happening, each of those problems, there are theories available. Or you may be connecting it in an indirect way. So that you need to find. That is why doing a thorough literature is very important for understanding the problem and then solving the problem. Many of us, we do not do this exercise of finding elaborately the available theories and how they are connected. And making a map out of it makes us more and more knowledgeable and we become an expert. Okay, so now just quickly going into use of theory in different paradigms. As I told you, theory may be present in different places in different paradigms. We have spoken about this. So in a quantitative research, we start from a theory and end with the theory. So we may have a situation, we have a problem, we may have a phenomenon, we use theory to detect it and understand it. So you need to understand the problem by understanding the theory or connecting a theory. Then you will find a gap in it. So that leads to a research where you will collect data, you will have hypothesis, you will have research design, you will have research questions. So all these research question, design, hypothesis and data comes out, and you fill that gap, and this theory gets added or modified. This theory gets added or modified. Then again that theory goes into cycle. So this is a loop, theory to theory. Theory, problem, gap, address the gap, fill the gap, new theory, use the theory, find the gap, again address it. It becomes a cycle. So this is a kind of a quantitative research where we start with the theory. So in a quantitative research, you will have to explain a theory and what are the factors in a theory and what is that missing. You need to fill it up, then do the research. A lot of people do entirely different variables they will bring. All 3-4 variables they are measuring. All the 3-4 variables are something new. You don't have a base of the theory, then you are not doing a quantitative research. It will not be accepted. So I have an example for that. Most of you would remember in management or psychology, there is one popular experiment in 1945 conducted by Elton Mayo. It is called as Hawthorne experiments. Hawthorne experiments. So before Hawthorne experiments, the theory, the motivation theory was like workers are motivated for money. That is why they are working. And they will work hard without supervision. No need to follow them or no need to watch them. They will do wonderful work. So theory X and Y, if you remember in management, there is theory X and Y. So using theory X and Y, the researchers came out with certain problems in the industry, saying that that is not working. Then they wanted to experiment. So they conducted an experiment in a telephone assembly factory. So there was a kind of a line or assembly. So after the experiment, they came out with a new theory that reward and recognition will give more motivation. So new theory. So from existing theory, you find a gap and you pose the hypothesis and you conduct a research, then you change the theory and a new theory emerges. So that is how your quantitative research will work. So in quantitative research, set the hypothesis. Hypothesis may be sometimes if-then statement, and you may connect them and you can test them, and that becomes the theory. Qualitative research. Many of us in qualitative research, where is the theory? Theory is embedded inside the data. We need to search for it. You can look at this. This is a data. Within this, there is a theory. That's why we call it as grounded. It's grounded inside it. And we search for it. We search for it and we come out with the theory. So it means from the observation, from the data, we are coming out with the theory. We don't start with the theory. Therefore, in qualitative research, theory emerges from the data or the observation. In qualitative also, there is one more way of using theory. Theory is the light, a theory is the direction, a theory is the lens by which even those qualitative information you will infer. So theory as a lens in qualitative research. So in qualitative research, theory is used in two ways. Theory as the end result or theory as a guiding. But in mixed method, use of theory in mixed method, how is theory used? So you all know mixed method is qualitative and quantitative mixed. So mixed method studies may have no theories at all, or a theoretical framework in which both qualitative and quantitative data are collected. What is this kind of mixed method? It is a qualitative followed by a quantitative, or qualitative and quantitative concurrent. So in a qualitative followed by a quantitative research, theory is not there. So you search for the theory, you come out with a theory, and you test the theory, and you give the theory. So that is what the mixed method, qualitative to quantitative. In a see the concurrent qualitative and quantitative, you will have a theoretical lens, and you do both qualitative and quantitative, and you find the final theory. So that is how in a mixed method we use the theory. So theory is used as a deductive way, that is quantitative followed by qualitative, or in an inductive way with qualitative followed by quantitative, or as a theoretical lens in a concurrent method. So this is how theory is used in a mixed method. So now coming to the first question that came in the beginning. The types of theories are the levels of theories. So micro level theories. There can be micro level theories limited to a small segment of time, place, or number of people. That's a micro level theory. So as I told you, a theory emerging out of a case study about one company. That can be a theory at a lower level. A theory that is coming out of multiple studies of number of companies in an industry. That can be in another level. A theory that is emerging out of studying many industries. A global level theory. So from micro level theories to middle level theories or meso level theories to macro level theories, broader level, macro level, broader level, explains for the entire society. See, many times we take a macro level theory and try to do research. That is not possible, because in a macro level theory, it is all general concepts and it may not be measurable. You need to drill down them into micro level theory to even do a research. So there are examples I have given: grand theory, meso level theory, micro level theory. You can do this exercise by doing a review of literature, even with a popular theory like Maslow's theory. Maslow's theory can be at a grand theory. If you break it down, Maslow's theory itself has two parts of the theory. The first part speaks about the hierarchy of the needs. First part of the theory talks about the hierarchy of the needs. The second part of the theory talks about that higher order needs will not emerge until the lower order needs are satisfied. That is a second level of the theory. So even Maslow's theory has two theories in it. Again, if you divide the hierarchy theory, you can break it down into so many components. micro level theory, you can bring it down, Maslow's theory. So that is what the theory levels are like. So we need to understand that theories exist at different levels. So this is how we can connect the smallest finding from your research to a micro level theory, to a mid-range theory, to a grand theory. You need to connect it also. So empirical findings, you connect it to a mid-range theory. From a mid-range theory, you connect it to a grand theory. But your empirical findings cannot directly go to the grand theories. Many of us do this mistake. We say, I'm taking this theory. But that theory is a grand theory. You need to operationalize, you need to bring it down to an empirical level, break it down, break it down, break it down. So that's what last class also I was telling you, you need to break it down. So when you are reading a research article, theory will be found in different places. In the introduction, you can find theories. In the review of literature, you can find theories. In the hypothesis or research question, you can see theories. Sometimes in research articles or some theses, there is a theoretical background section separately. So that only presents the theories. So how to search and how to find a theory is, you can search for theories in these areas. So theory is located in review of literature. So it can be theory with a name. It can be a theory with a name, or it can be something only saying the connection between the variables, or sometimes it can have the name of the person as a theory. So different ways of finding the theory. So coming to the final slides. So the level of abstraction or level of theory or level of philosophy. So from empirical indicator to theory, theory to philosophy, philosophy to the paradigm. That is how the level of knowledge exists. So we need to understand that when we are doing with research, first we start with paradigm, we do deduction, we come down to this level, then go reverse through induction, we again go back to paradigm. That is what the research cycle is. So we do theory building as well as theory testing. So everybody is not involved in theory building. Everybody is not involved in theory building. Sometimes we do theory testing also. What is the theory testing and theory building? See, if you don't add anything, if you don't find a new relationship, then it is just testing. Use the theory as it is. You apply it for a situation. You collect data, evidence. You strengthen the theory. You are only testing the theory. But if you make modification, if you make additions, if you make deletions, that becomes theory building. So that is why when we talk about the contribution, theoretical contribution, we can be a reporter. We can be a qualifier. This has a low theoretical contribution. What do reporters do? Is inductive grounds prediction with a logical speculation and attempts to replicate previously demonstrated effect. They are not doing anything new. So you can see this is building new theory, how we scale up. That is from replicating the demonstrated effect to introducing a new construct or examining an unexplored relationship or testing a new mediator or a moderator. These are at a higher level of the theory building. Similarly, theory testing. On this side, if you go, you are doing a theory testing. If you are at this level, your contribution is low on the theory testing. And if you go to this end, the grounds prediction with existing theory, then your testing itself is a higher level. So High theoretical contribution, testers, expanders, builders. So here, expanders, theory, they expand. Here they build theories. Here they test theories. So this is how contribution. So people stay at different levels, but you need to quote. You need to say what you are doing. Are you building a theory? Are you testing a theory? Are you expanding a theory? Are you reporting a theory? Are you qualifying a theory? So that is what theory development levels from testing to theory building.
Sir, at the PhD level, is testing allowed, sir? Do they accept?
Testing is allowed. See, depends on the policy of the university. Policy of the university. So testing it in a new context. Testing it in the new context that you can do. But the problem identification session which I told you, at PhD level, the UGC expects you to solve the social problems. Then you are not just testing. That is why, because of UGC, universities are turning into more theory building. So you need to understand that don't waste your time at PhD level by testing theories. There are people who do it at MPhil level or master level testing. At PhD level, try to do a contribution, a major contribution. That's why I told you what will be the worth of your research. That depends on the university policy and time to time the UGC policy. If you take a very old theory, that's why I told you Sodh Ganga, don't go and refer. Because that may not give you right picture of the current situation. UGC in current times requires novel research. They don't want somebody to spend 3 years testing old theories. So that is why contribution has to be at an higher level. And the expectations of the university is placed at an higher level. At Christ University, we are moving towards higher level of expectations. So that's why we say scholars joining the management studies of Christ University, we don't want somebody who will come and do research on job satisfaction or brand loyalty. So we want researchers who will find some new applications and new theories. So that is what we insist. So PhD level, we look forward for an higher level, So you should go this side of your research. Okay, so that's all for today. Theory building. So what is a theory? Today we have understood what is a theory, how does a theory look like, what are the components of a theory, how research builds a theory, so theory building methods, and how we use theory into our research, where is theory found in the different paradigms and research process, and what is the level of contribution into the theory. So that is what we have seen today.